Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to crochet an easy ear flap beanie with a pom-pom on top. You'll need your yarn, your hook, scissors, and stitch markers. For this project, one ball of yarn is enough. This yarn is 8 ply, 100% acrylic, and each ball has 100 grams. For this beanie, it's only 60 grams, including the pom-pom. I noticed a lot of people ask about the thickness of the yarn, so the thickness of the yarn is here, 8 ply. So that's like a category 3. And this yarn calls for a 4mm crochet hook, and that's what I'm going to be using. If your yarn calls for a different hook size, you're going to use that size. By the way, I started streaming on Twitch at Cherilyn. I do crochet, games, or just chatting. If you want to connect with me personally, don't be afraid to drop me a follow there. So this is what we're going to make initially. This is going to be the top of the beanie. Eventually, I will close this opening. But the reason why I'm not starting the beanie with a circle on top is because this is easier. If you start with a magic loop and then you crochet in the round, then each round you would need to increase. But if you do it this way, you don't need to increase. It's easier for beginners. So like I just said, this is what we're going to start with. So I started from here, crocheting in the round, and then I crochet more and more round to make this longer. This is gonna be the top of the beanie, and once I make more rounds to make this longer, then I make 2 ear flaps on the side of the beanie. So we're going to begin with a slip knot. And then insert your hook. We're going to make a chain that can stretch to your head circumference. So to make a chain, yarn over and pull it through the loop on the hook. Chain 1, yarn over, pull through chain 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm just going to continue chaining. So when I say make a chain that stretches to your head circumference, you should know that it's the measurement that matters, not how many chains I've made. Because if you're using a yarn of a different thickness, each chain of yours would have a different size. So if your yarn is thicker, your chain would be bigger. But for the measurement, my head is around 21 inches, 22 inches. So this chain, as you can see, can stretch to 21, even 22 inches. But if you don't have a tape measure, a better way to measure it is to just wrap this around your head and make sure these 2 ends just meet. So if you're using 8 ply yarn and 4mm as well, you can more or less refer to my chain number. My chain number is 75. But it also depends on your head size. If you have a smaller head, you will need to chain less. If you have a bigger head, you would need to chain more. But if you're not using an 8 ply yarn, don't use my chain number. Refer to the measurement instead. So when you make sure you've chained enough, I'm gonna join this chain in the round. Make sure the chain is not twisted like that. So I'm gonna make sure it's not twisted. And join it in the round like that. So I'm gonna insert my hook there in the very first stitch, and I'm gonna make a slip stitch. So yarn over, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull the first loop through the second one. Okay, now we joined in the round. This is the foundation chain. Now we're gonna crochet in rounds. Row 1, we're gonna work in the back loop of the chain, because if you work in the back loop here, your edge will look like this. It will have some thickness, and when you close this beginning, it won't create big holes. But if you insert in here, just normally in this loop of a chain, when you close the opening, you will be creating big holes there. So that means now we need to find the back loops. If you turn your chain, you will see these little bumps at the back. And that's where we're gonna insert our hook. So you need to find the very first back bump. So as you can see, that's the back bump of the first chain. That's the second back bump. That's the second chain there. So that's the bump I should insert my hook into. You can place a stitch marker there, just in case later you have difficulty in finding it. So to begin row 1, I'm gonna chain 1, and then I'm gonna go in the back bump in there. Okay, so for this pattern, we're going to be using double crochets, and the very first double crochet of each round, as you can see, looks like this. This is because I'm not using the traditional chain 2 as the first double crochet. If you use this method, I'm going to show you here, your join will look like this, which is better than the chain 2, because the chain 2 will create holes. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. Insert your hook in the back bump of the first chain, make a single crochet, so you yarn over, pull it up, yarn over, pull through 2, and then insert your hook in the left vertical loop. You make another single crochet, so you yarn over, pull, yarn up again, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. So that is the first double crochet. I'm gonna place a stitch marker here in the top 2 loops. These are the top 2 loops. So that's the first double crochet. We're gonna make this at the beginning of each round. And then from the second chain, we can make normal double crochet. So to make a double crochet, yarn over. Now we're gonna insert in the back bump of the next chain, which is here. So you insert here, yarn over, pull, yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's a normal double crochet. Then you're just gonna keep doing that. So you yarn over, insert in the back bump here of the next chain, yarn over, pull, yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So continue working like this. Work 1 double crochet in the back bump of each chain. Okay, so when you get to the beginning of the round, this is where you would need your stitch number. because you might not recognize how many chains you have left. So that looks like another back bump there. But basically, the easiest way to make sure you don't miss any stitch is to have the same number of stitches as your beginning chain number. So I have 75 chains. That means round 1, and each round after this, I should have 75 stitches for each of them. And this stitch marker marks the very first stitch, so I can count from this. So I counted my stitches. I do have 75 stitches, so I know that I don't have any chains left here to work into. Now, again, make sure this round is not twisted. Now I'm going to slip stitch in the very first stitch, which is marked. So to make a slip stitch, insert my hook in the top 2 loops, pull yarn up, and then slip stitch. So that was round 1. I can take out this stitch marker. Now round 2 is very similar to round 1, and round 2 is the round we repeat. So at the beginning of each round, you're gonna chain 1, and in the first stitch, which is this one, remember we slip stitched in that stitch. And also the very first double crochet looks like this. This is 1 stitch. We're gonna make this special double crochet again. So in the very first stitch here, I'm gonna insert in the top 2 loops, make a single crochet first, and then in the left vertical loop, make another single crochet. So insert your hook, pull yarn up, yarn over, and pull through 2. And then you're going to mark this stitch again. You're going to mark the very first stitch of each round. So in the top 2 loops like that. And then from the second stitch again, you're going to make the normal double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook in the top 2 loops. From this round, we're always going to insert in the top 2 loops. Make a double crochet and continue working like that, 1 double crochet in each stitch until you come back to the beginning of this round. Okay, so I have these 2 stitches left, 1 double crochet in each of them. So if you can't tell the stitches, you can see that one is on top of that first stitch on top of that, and we just made a stitch in this last stitch as well. If you really can't tell, you can always count your stitches again. You should still have the same number of stitches. So for me, it should be again 75. And then after you finish each round, slip stitch in the first stitch again, which is marked, so that you can join in the round. So slip stitch like that. And then you're just gonna repeat this round. So take out the stitch marker, chain 1, and work your first special double crochet in the very first stitch. Insert in the top 2 loops, make a single crochet, and then in the left vertical loop, make a single crochet again. Mark your first stitch, and then from the next stitch, 1 double crochet in the top 2 loops of each stitch. And then when you come back to the beginning again, work 1 last double crochet in the last stitch, and then slip stitch in the very first stitch, and then you keep repeating that round. If you're still not too familiar with the pattern, you can rewind the video to the beginning of round 2. But yeah, round 2 is the repeat round, and you're going to keep repeating that round until this is long enough. But before we make it too long, we should close the opening at the top. So when we try this on, this measurement would be more accurate. So I've made 14 rows. That's about 7 inches, which is 18 centimeters. To close off this opening, I'm going to need a yarn needle. So I'm going to find where the join is, just roughly, and go in through the top 2 loops of one stitch, come out through the top 2 loops of the next, go in again, top 2 loops, and then come out again. So I'm going to continue doing this all the way around. So I've come back to the beginning. I'm gonna pull some length here, cut this yarn, I'm gonna get both of them to the wrong side. So pull the yarn to the wrong side. You can also use the yarn needle. Turn your work inside out so you can tighten this opening. You're just gonna try your best to close it. Be careful, don't pull it too hard, otherwise your yarn might break. But yeah, I'm just going to tie these together. Tie a few knots like that. And then I'm going to sew this little hole shut. So turn to the wrong side. I'm gonna sew from this side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to go through the edges like that. And then do it again in a different direction. Maybe this way. Like that. And then I'm just gonna continue doing that until this opening is sewed shut. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the right side. After that, I'm going to tie these ends together again. And cut these yarn tails. So this is what it looks like after you close off the top. Now you can put it on. So you put it on like this as a beanie and see if you need to add more rounds. We couldn't decide if we wanted to make more rounds before because the top was not closed. But now that it is closed, I can see that it does not cover my forehead. I might need to do 1 to 2 more rounds here. Okay, so I did 2 more rounds here. Now we're going to make the ear flaps. So you're gonna find the join stitch at the back, which is this one. This is the very first stitch, the special double crochet we made at the beginning of the round. And then I'm gonna count from this stitch. I'm gonna count the same number of stitches from that stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then keep counting like that all the way to the other side. And because I have 75 stitches, which is an odd number, I have one stitch here. And if I keep counting like that, 2 stitches at the center here instead of 1, if that makes sense. So if you have an even number of stitches for a round, you would have 1 stitch at the center instead of 2. So now I have 2. I'm going to place a stitch marker here. So that's going to be the front of the hat. From here, I'm going to count 8 stitches from this direction. I'm going to place a stitch marker here. I've got 8 stitches here, and then 8 stitches in the other direction as well. Place this stitch marker here to mark the 8 stitches. And like I said before, this stitch, the special double crochet, is the center back. For the front, I'm gonna leave it as I explained, but for the back, instead of doing 8 stitches, keeping my stitch markers here, I'm gonna leave them a bit closer to the center back because I left my stitch marker, for example this side, I left my stitch marker here and I did my ear flap. It's not big enough. I didn't cover my area behind my ear enough. So instead of doing ear flap on these stitches, I'm gonna make it bigger, closer to the back side of the beanie. So that's the center stitch. I left 4 stitches here. I'm gonna place a stitch marker between these 2 stitches. 4 stitches instead of 8. 4 stitches instead of 8. So now my ear flap's gonna be bigger, wider, and closer to the back of my head. Now you might have your stitch like that. You just simply insert your hook back in this loop. I'm gonna move from this stitch center back to this stitch marker. So chain 1, skip this special double crochet. In the next stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, pull yarn up, and then pull the first loop through the second one, like that. That's a slip stitch. In the next stitch, do the same thing, pull yarn up, pull it through. 3 and 4. And when you reach the stitch marker, as you can see, the next stitch is going to be where we're going to start working the ear flap. So I can take out the stitch marker. That stitch is going to be the first stitch. If we just work 1 stitch on top of that, and 1 stitch on top of this edge, the ear flap is going to go straight down. But we don't want it to be like that. We want it to kind of be in that shape. So what we need to do here is create a shape like that by decreasing. And then how do you decrease the stitches? Instead of working 1 stitch over each stitch, at this very edge, I'm going to work 1 stitch over 3 stitches. So 3 stitches on the next row will become 1 stitch. So I'm going to chain 1 first. That is the first stitch, remember, for the ear flap. So I'll insert in that stitch, make a single crochet. This is how we made that special double crochet. And then in the left vertical loop, I'm going to pull the yarn up through 1 loop. So I have 2 loops on my hook. So that's an unfinished double crochet. If we do this, it's going to be finished, right? But We want it to be unfinished because we want to work that stitch with the other 2 double crochets. Okay, so next I'm going to yarn over again, prepare for a double crochet, go in the next stitch, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2 once. So yarn over, pull through 2 loops like that. That's another unfinished double crochet. We're going to do that one more time over the 3rd stitch. Yarn over, insert in the next stitch, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2. Now you have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all of them. So now as you can see, we worked over 3 stitches, but on this end the stitch is very thin, so it turned into 1 stitch. I'm going to mark this stitch. So those 2 loops are actually the top 2 loops of this decrease stitch. So I'm going to place a stitch marker there. And then from the next stitch, I can work normal double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull yarn up, pull through 2, and pull through 2. So from here, this is what you're going to do. You're just going to work 1 double crochet in each stitch until you have 3 stitches left before this stitch marker. So now I have 3 stitches left. I'm going to work 1 stitch over the 3 of them, but because this is the end of the row, the first stitch is a bit easier. So yarn over, insert in that stitch, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2 only once. Do the same for the next 2 stitches as well. Yarn over, pull through 2 once, and the last stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2. 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all. And then you mark that stitch if you want. Place the stitch marker in the top 2 loops. Okay, that's row 1 of the ear flap. And then you turn your work. We're going to work in the opposite direction. Now, the very first stitch is marked. That was the last stitch of the last row, row 1. Row 2, that is the first stitch. And in the first stitch, we need to work that special double crochet. So just insert your hook in that stitch, which was marked. Yarn over, pull it up. Yarn over, pull through 2. In the left vertical loop, pull yarn up. And that's it for the first stitch. And then you work the next 2 stitches together as well. So yarn over, insert hook, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2 once. Do the same thing for the 3rd stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2 once. 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all. And then you mark this first stitch of row 2. From the very next stitch, work 1 double crochet in each stitch. And then again, you work all the way to the end of the row until you have 3 stitches left. Now I have 3 stitches left at the end of the row. I'm going to do the same thing. So yarn over, insert, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2. That's for one stitch. Yarn over, insert in the next stitch, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2. That's for the second stitch, and then one last stitch. We're going to do that. Yarn over, insert in the top 2 loops. That's marked. Pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2. 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all. And then you take out the stitch marker, place it in the new last stitch. And then you turn, you're going to repeat row 2. So you turn your work. We've just done this before, remember? Row 2. The very first stitch is marked. So you make that special double crochet, insert your hook, pull it up, yarn over, pull through 2, left vertical loop, pull this yarn through, and then 2 more stitches, yarn over, insert hook, pull it up, yarn over, pull through 2. Next stitch as well, this is the third one, yarn over, insert hook, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2. 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all. And always remember to mark your very first stitch, so that when you come back, you know which stitch is the last stitch to work into. And then from the next stitch, 1 double crochet in each stitch, work to the end of the row until you have 3 stitches left, including the marked stitch. So 1, 2, 3, and then you work 1 stitch over those 3 stitches, just like we did before. So you're just going to repeat that row 2, repeat that pattern, and continue decreasing like that. Then as you can see, we're decreasing gradually. It's forming a shape like that. I'll see you when you have 3 stitches left for the row. Okay, after some decreased rows, I have 5 stitches left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I decrease here, over the first 3 stitches, I'm going to have 2 stitches left. So instead of doing that, I'm going to work 1 stitch over the first stitch, 1 stitch over 3 stitches in the middle, and then 1 stitch over the last stitch. So that's the first stitch. You just make the special double crochet. So insert in the left vertical loop, pull yarn through 1 loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then you do a decrease. So yarn over, pull it up, yarn over, pull through 2. Next stitch, yarn over, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2. Next stitch again, yarn over, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2. 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all, and then 1 last double crochet in the last stitch. So here I forgot to mark the first stitch, but I should have 3 stitches. So if that's the last stitch, that's the last stitch, that's the middle stitch, then you can see that is the first stitch. So you can choose to place the stitch marker in that stitch. And here I'm gonna turn and work the very last decrease stitch. So 1, 2, 3 stitches. I'm gonna work 1 stitch over those 3. So insert your hook in the first stitch, special double crochet, unfinished, special double crochet, yarn over in the next stitch, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2, last stitch, yarn over, pull yarn up through that stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all, and that is the end of this ear flap. So when you finish the very last stitch, chain 1 and pull yarn through. Leave about 10 inches here, so after you cut this yarn, the whole length is gonna be 20 inches. So like that, 10 inches. Cut this yarn and pull it through. So that's one ear flap done, as you can see. Now I'm gonna work the other ear flap. But for the other one, I'm gonna work from the front. From this stitch to that. So that's the center front of the hat. If you remember the color of the stitch marker, center back of the hat, center front of the hat, and between these two stitch markers, we're gonna work the ear flap. It's worked in the same way as the other one, but I'll just show you how to get it started. So you make a slip knot. That stitch is going to be the first stitch. Insert your hook in the top 2 loops, pull this slip knot through. So pull it through and chain 1. Now you can do the same thing here. Starting from the very first stitch, when I insert my hook, I'm gonna put this yarn tail on my hook. So when I work my stitch, this tail will be worked in the stitches, so I don't have to weave it in later. So you pull yarn up and then make your special double crochet until you have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over. On top of these 3, we're going to work 1 stitch, remember? So yarn over, insert in the next stitch, the second one. Make sure the yarn tail is on your hook. Yarn over, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and do it one more time for the 3rd stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2, 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all. Okay, so now that I got you started, the rest of the pattern is exactly the same as the other one. So go ahead and finish this ear flap. I'll see you back here and show you how to do the braids. So this is one 20-inch strand. We're gonna need 8 more so that we have 9. And then from there, we can just braid these. So instead of making 8 20-inch strand, I can make 4 40-inch strand and then just thread them through the stitch. If you didn't quite get that, it's okay, just follow what I do. So I just fold this yarn, pulling it through until it's 20 inches. So like that. And then I'm gonna cut here. So because the yarn is folded in half, it's 20 inches, but if you open it up, it's gonna be 40 inches. And this is what we're going to make. I just made 1 of this. You're gonna go ahead and make 3 more. So now I have 4 strands of 40-inch chains. I'm going to get them through this stitch, like the center of the stitch here. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull them through like that. Keep pulling until the ends here meet up. So as you can see, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 strands. Now that we have 9 strands, we can divide them by 3 so that we have 3, 3, 3 like that. And now we can braid. I don't know if you guys know how to braid. Hopefully you do, but if you don't, this is how you do it. So you grab the left one, go over the middle one, and then the right one over the new middle one, right? And then left one over middle one again, right over middle, left over middle, right over middle, and you're just going to repeat this. So I'm going to stop it here. My braid is now 6 inches. If you want, you can go longer, but I think that's enough. So I'm gonna stop it here before I need to grab the right strand and go over the middle strand. I'm going to stop it here. Now I'm going to grab the right strand and go over and then go around like that, so that I create a loop here. Now I'm going to grab the yarn tail and pull it through the loop. Like that. And now I'm going to cut this yarn. I'm going to leave about 2 inches. And I'm going to cut there. Okay, now this Earflap beanie is almost done. Now we just need to make the pom-pom on top. To make the pom-pom, check out this video right here. I hope you like this video. Bye!